It's the greatest podcast in the history of the world.
It goes high up and under the full forward. Becky's taken a ripper!
He has a bounce, he crosses 50, he pins the ears back, and he drills the goal!
All the latest news and views from around the VAFA.
Here's the big man!
The big guy.
He's done it again! This bloke extracts some of the finest!
From outside the arc. It's a long bomb from outside the arc!
This is for the love of the game.
You can tweet that and hashtag it bloody good.
Hey everybody, welcome to For the Love of the Game. Round one is in the books and it delivered everything we hoped for. It had been such a long build-up, but we finally got there and we had some fantastic footy across the weekend, up and down the divisions in both the men's and the women's competitions. We're about to unpack it all here for you over the next hour and a bit. Jason Bennett alongside Matty Donald and Brayden May. We waited a long time, Matty, but it was worth the wait.
Yes, hello Jason, Brayden, and hello to everyone tuning in. And what an exciting opening weekend it was. So many great stories across all the divisions and looking forward to unpacking all of them with you today. And it leaves us with some really intriguing matchups ahead of round two this weekend. I'm already looking forward to Saturday, but before we get to there, let's unpack the weekend that was. It was a great start to the year.
No, it was really exciting. Going through the results, whether it was new players, familiar faces, returning faces from injury, there was just so much to talk about. I think the best thing about the opening parts of the season, you uncover so many untapped stories.
And one of the great stories of Premier Men's was Old Haileybury, and joining us to talk through their incredible come-from-behind win is their coach, Guy Martyn. Guy, congratulations. What a first-up win. That's a game you'll never forget.
Yeah, mate. There's a little interview doing the rounds after the game. I was pretty up and about. I was pretty amped after that win. So, yeah, I mean, as I said in that one, to win any game coming from behind is pretty special. To win any round one game and then round one at a new club. So just everything sort of combined turned into a pretty memorable win. Very happy. And
sorry, go ahead, mate.
Oh, no, I was also going to say, yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, mate, no problem. Thanks for your time. Hey, let's talk through the early stages of the game. The Blacks sort of dominated the contest early. They were well on top on the inside, and they had 6 first quarter scores from turnover. They were a couple of goals up, and then they generated more inside 50s in the second term, a lot more potent. They were clunking everything inside 50 and led by 15 points at the major break. What were you thinking at that stage of the game when you brought the boys in at half-time?
So a few things. Yeah, look, you nailed it. Their stuff around the contest and the stoppage is pretty good. I think their new ruckman, Sam Conway, is going to cause a lot of headaches for a lot of teams. Our ruckman, Bally, I rate him really highly, but he had his work cut out for. He's a big man, Sam Conway, and had a fair bit of ruck dominance, which gives them a bit of confidence around the contest, and they're pretty good inside there. Look, I wasn't perhaps as concerned as maybe some were. We had our chances. The first half of the second quarter was living in our forward line. We just couldn't convert. A few little things didn't go our way, and he's trying to just pump up to the guys or reinforce to the guys. And it's just a couple of moments here or there can change the things. And as I said, we had our chances. We just didn't take them, and then they did in that second half of the second quarter. And the goal after the siren really hurt, and it was probably as flat as I've ever seen a side at half-time for, only a 14 or 15-point deficit. So I was trying to go through it pretty logically, that it's not that big of a margin. It's a couple of things here or there, and we're still well and truly in the game. I wasn't too stressed, but the boys, I think, were pretty deflated after that goal that they kicked after the half-time siren.
It was a bit of an arm wrestle in the third term, and then the Blacks eventually got out to a 32-point lead. Flynn Gregor managed to get on the back of that goal late at the 28-minute mark to make it 26 points. You were down at the last change. What was the message to the group, and what was the vibe in the huddle?
Vibe was all right. Message was it was a message that we said pre-game, but it's funny, we sort of wanted to play a certain way, but we didn't really do it until we had to. And there was a little bit of a breeze that was sort of coming and going throughout the day. It wasn't really strong, but it was probably a couple of goals. And I think that just sort of helped with the way that we wanted to play. We sort of said, leave no stone unturned and be pretty aggressive and just have a go at it. And to get an early goal in that last quarter really helped. We were pretty fortunate with a lucky bounced into Darius Seckle's lap and ran into an open goal. And I think once we got one and then a second early, the momentum sort of went with us and the confidence built. And as I said, I reckon the Blacks maybe they went into their shell a little bit and the ball was just parked in our forward half. So I guess, the message at three-quarter time was don't die wondering, don't walk off losing by 5 goals and have a stalemate of a last quarter. Let's take a few risks and go at it and try and win it. And, yeah, we did.
You said lucky, Guy. Don't be so modest. You'd thrown Darasekal. He played back for the first 3 quarters, hadn't you? You threw him forward and bang, the ball bounces into his arms. He kicks a goal in 90 seconds. That's just masterful coaching.
Yeah, I regret not doing it in the second quarter as well. Look, he's won goal kicking. He's won goal kicking comps. He's won leading goal kicker at the club, as well as best and fairest as a defender. So it's no secret he'll be a swing man for us all year. He might start forward some games, start back the other. I sort of wanted to do it in the second quarter when we had the win, but almost got talked out of it. But yeah, it was a no-brainer. Halfway through the third quarter, we knew that we were going to send him forward for the last quarter when we had that little breeze and just give us another marking target. But no, I can call a spade a spade. That was lucky. The Blacks defender tripped over. It was bouncing out. It bounced over his head. And Durras, as per usual, trailing his opponent, and it turned into a pretty fortunate bounce. But that's what I was trying to say at half time about having moments. Some of the moments were just going their way, I thought, which happens in footy, and you just need a couple of them to a bit of luck. Whether it's an umpiring decision, a lucky bounce, or just the luck of the draw sometimes. So we started getting a few of those in the last quarter, and things went our way, and we managed to pile on the goals.
No, Jace, I'm not convinced. I'm still putting it down to modesty. Guy, congratulations on the win at the weekend. Terrific start for you. I'm curious how, in terms of what you've got at your disposal, it must be really pleasing that you've got a group of players that are really prepared to buy into the mentality of really going for it, even when the odds look stacked against them, and that they've bought into the program and what you're trying to instill in them. That must be a really encouraging sign for you.
Yeah, look, it's probably sounds a bit cliched. After the game, I spoke about, look, obviously the win's great and getting the 4 points and all those sort of things, but I think what's more important for us is sort of what you touched on there, just reinforcing some belief, for the weeks to come or months to come or the remainder of the year, or at least in the immediate future, so over the next few weeks, that this is what we are capable of. And so let's buy into that. Like, you've seen it. And as I said, at half time, we were really flat and it could have gone real bad. I was worrying about that. And then to come out in that last quarter and play the way they did, if nothing else, it just shows, gee whiz, guys, this is what you're capable of. This is what you can do when you play a certain way. I've said it a few times on Saturday. We're at 18 of our 22 were 22 years or younger on Saturday. So we're a young side, and they could have gone into their shells and sort of retreated and lacked a bit of confidence as the game went on. But they came out and they did it. Such a fantastic job the way they played, and for such a young group, it was pretty impressive. So hopefully it just instills a bit of confidence and belief for the weeks to come.
I guess the great thing for you guys is that you're learning about this group every week as well. You've obviously had your first pre-season in charge, you've had your practice matches, and then to learn a lot in the last 30 minutes of this side, it goes to show that you probably don't have to kick and scream, that this is a very self-motivated group as well.
Yeah, I'm 100% still learning, even a lot of things with how we want to play and how we want to set up and who plays where. We still don't have it locked in because I just don't know. I had ideas coming in, and then you change at Christmas, and then you change leading into the first practice match, and after each game you start learning a few things and changing, tweaking some ideas and some thoughts about how you want to play or who you want to play in what positions. But I think I sort of termed them the baby bloods in reference to the baby Bombers of 93, and I'm looking into that side and what made them good, and they said that Kevin Sheedy just sort of gave them a license a little bit and play with flair and use your youth as as an advantage. People are going to look at a young side and think they're going to have some weaknesses or deficiencies, but there's also advantages with being young, so we've got to buy into that and lean into that as much as possible. So yeah, I was really impressed with that last quarter, and probably just a response for such a young group. So really happy. Still on pretty high, pretty happy about it. But probably need a win against Caulfield to frank that now.
7 goals to 1 in the final term. That's the fearlessness of youth, isn't it? Just throw caution to the wind and go for it after kicking 6 in the first 3 quarters. As you mentioned, bit of a local derby of sorts, really. Just heading around the corner, up the street, a couple of kilometres to visit Caulfield Grammarians. What are you making of it, and what are you expecting?
Well, yeah, they're probably, without knowing a heap, they're probably in a similar position to us in terms of their sort of age, demographic. that sort of thing. I coached against them in a past life a couple of years ago. I know they've gone through a bit of a changeover, a changeover of list and are relatively young. And from reports, they, pretty sort of slick and fast and young and had a pretty good showing against Xavier in a practice match a couple of weeks ago and, took Scotch to 3 goals or whatever it was on Saturday. So without knowing a heap about them individually, you're sort of starting to get a little bit of a vibe about how they're playing. And from some people that I've spoken to that have watched them over the pracky matches or round one, they said they're a team definitely to worry about or to think about, that's for sure.
Guy, thanks so much for your time. Congratulations on the win. Best of luck this week.
No, thanks, Jason. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Always great to catch up with Guy Martyn. What a wonderful start. He was so pumped. Andrew Cox, one of our VAFA Media reporters, caught up with him straight after the game. That interview is on our VAFA socials if you want to have a look. He was just so excited. He still had the adrenaline pumping. He's been around a long time. He's won an A-grade flag at St Kevin's. He's done some wonderful things in this competition. But to turn up day one with your new club and win like that, how exciting.
Oh, no, it's a terrific story, a terrific game of football, and it's great to see that the passion is alive well and truly right out of the gates in 2026. It was a terrific occasion, though, on Saturday.
And the sort of thing that can build such belief in your team, Brayden.
Exactly right. And I think when there were so many question marks about how they would perform, change of coach, obviously lost some of their key players to the VFL, and you bring in a lot of young guys, as he's discussed in your article, Jason, which is huge as well. You just don't know what the kids are going to do. They can sometimes falter under pressure, but to rally late, it just speaks volumes of the belief he's instilled in them in pre-season.
Well, the other tight game of the weekend was at Camberwell Sports Ground. 2024 Premiers Old Scotch hosted the newly promoted Caulfield Grammarians. The Fields found their feet pretty quickly. They kicked a goal 3 minutes in, and they were up and about. They were up by 2 goals at quarter time, in fact, to Caulfield. They were playing some really good footy. Mark Nat said that Caulfield had the ascendancy in the first term. Their defence held up pretty well, though, it must be said. And from there, it was a bit of an arm wrestle. Scotch peppered away in the second term, 4 consecutive behinds before Aidan Frenetic kicked his first goal of the season. Archie Luffnan responded a minute later for Caulfield. They headed to the rooms leading by a single point. It was a really tight game. Cardinals then clicked up a gear in the third term. They kicked the next 4 goals after Tom Williams kicked the first for Caulfield. They got 15 points clear. Then Caulfield, credit to them, and this is the thing that Paul Sadley was talking to us about pre-season, they've just instilled this we fight all the way to the final siren kind of spirit. Late goals to Hugh McKenzie, Will Vesely, got them back within 4 points at the final change. They were still there. They actually hit the front early in the last quarter when Tom Williams kicked a goal. It was game on, and it really wasn't until about 11 minutes into that last term that Scotch were able to shake clear. Ferguson, Brown and Simons kicked 3 goals in 2.5 minutes. We've seen Scotch do that so many times before. Matty, they just find another gear. Ferguson then kicked his third early in time on, got it out to 23 points, and even then you're thinking, the game's over. But again, Caulfield, to their credit, showed some fight. They kicked 2 goals in 2 minutes. They got it back to 11 points at the 28-minute mark, but Scotch, as they do, very professionally, just ran down the clock. Freddie Leaton kicked a goal 90 seconds later. In the end, Cardinals by 19 points. Mark Nat said it was a great game of footy, both sides relatively young. They had 7 debutants, the Cardinals, the majority of those under 19, so that's exciting for the club. He was really delighted with their pressure, and at the same time he said that he and his old mate Sats and their team will win plenty of games in Premier Men's this season. He showed enough to say that they really belonged. Paul Sadley from Caulfield said they were super competitive in their first game in A-grade since 2023 and against a club that's played the last 2 grand finals as well. So one of the benchmark clubs of the competition. So to be within 11 points with a couple of minutes to go will give his group a lot of confidence. Ultimately, Scotch able to capitalise on turnovers, and that proved costly. But a great first-up result for Caulfield to be right in the mix and know straight away, hey, we actually do belong in this competition. We're going to continue to get better as well.
Yeah, it's always tricky when you're a newly promoted side because there's a lot of questions about how you're going to adjust to the step up. But they proved that they're going to make a lot of teams earn their wins this year. And that's an old Scotch team that made the grand final last year, won the flag the year before. They're right up there as one of the best teams in the competition. And we know how they approach it with the way they build their list. But the squad that they'll have out for the home and away season is still a very good one. So for Caulfield to run them as close as they did, to lead at halftime, to be within a kick, to be in front at one point in the last quarter as well, for a side that's just back in the Premier Division, they've proved themselves that they're going to be a really tough team to beat, and that any team that thinks they're going to get an easy win against them, well, they better have a good look at this match because they're going to be a tough side to come up against the Fields this year.
Yeah, the one thing I really take away, when Scotch go up that gear, that's where these sort of games can the gap a lot bigger. But for the Fields to stay with them, it shows a lot about their belief and the mental strength. I think that a lot of coaches will tell you footy's played 90% above the shoulders as well. So to stay with them, and Scotch could have blown that away, especially that mark that I'm sure we'll get to in a second. That could have swung the game, swung all the energy, but they just kept coming. So 4 quarters of footy, I know we haven't touched on the other games just yet, but I hate to say in 20 weeks' time there is going to be some very, very disappointed sides that probably are too good to almost go down.
The mark that Brayden's referring to, Henry Long, took a very early contender for Mark of the Year, but it's going to take some topping. Rose soared through the middle of a pack, pulled down an absolute beauty late in the third quarter. It was a fantastic grab. St Kevin's and Old Zaverians at TH King. You were there for our SEN VAFA Match of the Day coverage. St Kevin's, massive crowd. It was a fantastic crowd. It was like a finals atmosphere. It was a beautiful day like it is today. And gee, they turned up in numbers.
Oh, terrific atmosphere, terrific crowd, especially, as you say, for a round one game. Felt like we were at the back end of the season rather than the start. Spectators lining the entire oval in the end, and sometimes they got a little too close to the action in the end at times, but no major damage which was done, which was always a good thing. But as far as on the topic of damage, the Old Zavs were absolutely outstanding. Going into this match, they had a heap of their best players. Alex Spralia wasn't in the ruck, Marcus Stavros, Sam Fisher, both out of the midfield. So it was a very depleted, certainly engine room for the Old Zavs. Didn't look like they missed any of them, though. They were really good for the vast majority of the match. They kicked 3 of the first 4 goals of the game. St Kevin's dropped back at quarter time, got to within a kick. But then really from there, the game was controlled pretty much exclusively by Zavs to that point. It was 4 goals to none in the second term, so they took a 26-point lead into the main break and really only went and built on it from there. St Kevin's made a little rally just before three-quarter time and at the start of the last quarter, but it was snuffed out pretty quickly in the end. Nick Guiney kicking a terrific goal just to shut the gate. And in the end, that's how they managed to get a pretty comfortable win in the end, 13-12-90 to 8-16-64 St Kevin's. Very accurate, or very inaccurate rather, St Kevin's outfit, but Zavs have full value for their win. And if that's what they're like with a lot of their stars out, just imagine how good they're going to be once they get those talented players back in. They're going to be a really tough team to beat this year, Jace.
26-point win for Zavs. Their first at TH King since 2021. Campbell Lane was named Skins Player of the Game. 39 disposals, 5 inside 50, 6 rebound 50. So obviously worked really hard in both directions.
I was very good through the wing and half back and even drifted forward to kick a goal of the day contender as well. Dribbled a lovely finish from the boundary line in that third term as the Zavs looked to kick away. So he did just about everything, Campbell Lane. The outright skipper for the day for the Old Zavs, he was awesome.
The two coaches, what did they have to say after the game, Brayden? We'll start with Dan Donati from Old Zaverians because, well, as we mentioned, they haven't won out there at TH King for 5 years.
Well, he put it exactly that. Never easy to win, so they're wrapped to get the 4 points. I think we can all say that's almost an 8-point game. It's a cliche, but it just is at this time of year to go to a ground where you don't have great success. He spoke about the contest was king. Both teams battled outright, the pressure, and that's what you expect when you get the powerhouse of the competition. You touched on a finals-like atmosphere, Matty, and that's what he got. It's a long season ahead, and he said that they're just going to take their time with some of these guys that were missing as well.
Anthony Lynch, from a St Kevin's perspective, what did he make of it?
He just says the pressure and intensity that Zavs brought was the difference for his side. And to be honest, it was a difficult admission for his group at round one. But you've got to appreciate the honesty. I think honesty is the best sort of feedback. And if your players take that in the right way, it's going to help them be in a better side going into a blockbuster game this week. Said Zavs were just so clean with the footy. And I think that one touch that coaches, the real old school coaches want one touch, one handball, just out the packet, just breaks the game open. He said that he was really happy to stay in the game from a scoreboard perspective, but it just comes down to missing, unfortunately. Scoreboard pressure, again, it comes back to the mental side of the game. But again, I don't think you panic. They won't panic. There's still so much to play, and they're going to be right up there at the end of the season. We
spoke about St Kevin's last week. Obviously, no Paddy Kerr anymore up forward. It's going to take a little bit of time for that forward line to click. They had Jacob Kazitsky and they had Doug Kerr that we were keeping a close eye on to see how they went. How did the recruits go, and what did their sort of front half look like?
Yeah, they were well held, St Kevin's, over the course of the day, and certainly those two key forwards. A lot of St Kevin's attacks were just on the counter-attack. So in terms of a territorial sense, the game was played largely in Old Zav's attacking half, and most of St Kevin's goals they got on the break and being able to move the ball quickly into space. But we mentioned the pressure of Old Zavs. That's not to say that St Kevin's didn't bring the heat. Like, the pressure was really on from both sides. There was not a lot of room to move and breathe throughout the course of the game. So certainly I think Anthony Lynch and his Chargers can be pleased with the pressure that they brought. But yeah, certainly in terms of where the ball was camped for the majority of the match, certainly in Old Zavs attacking halves, and St Kevin's relying largely on slingshotting the ball out of defence and hitting them on the break. That's where they got most of their opportunities from.
St Kevin's off to Old Brighton this week to face Brighton at Brighton. There's no tougher assignment in the VAFA at the moment. And speaking of the Tunners, their fortress remains unbreached. They racked up their 19th consecutive home win after dismantling St Bernard's by 91 points. It was a really powerful statement from the reigning premiers. They couldn't really have been more emphatic. They kicked the first 6 goals of the game. Archie Manton, their boom recruit, kicked the first 2 of the game. He'd ultimately kicked 6 in his first VAFA game since he kicked 21 goals in 4 games for Willie CYMS in Premier B in 2024. So he's ready to take the competition by storm if Old Brighton managed to have him most weeks. He's also obviously at Port Melbourne in the VFL. And he and his ton of forwards, they were the beneficiaries really of Old Brighton's midfield dominance. They amassed 15 marks inside 50 to 6 for the afternoon. And you spoke about scores from turnover and the importance of that in the modern game. Well, Old Brighton kicked 11-13 from turnovers, 24 scoring shots. So the pressure up the field in the front half, they managed to go back the other way and punish Brighton. Snowdogs punished St Bernard's. The Snowdogs' first goal came by Marcus Holland 9 minutes into the second term. That was the only major of the opening half. They were 43 points down at quarter time. They then really put the foot down, did Old Brighton, in the final term. They were celebrating a hat-trick of premiership flag unfurlings. They had the under-19 Premier, they had their Premier B women, and they had their Premier men. So it was just a red-letter day that no one at Brighton will ever forget. And then they kicked 7-6 to 2-1 in the final term, so 13 shots to 3. So weren't content. They wanted to make a statement, and they certainly did, and they ran away to a 91-point win in the end. So it was a wonderful performance from them. Marcel Bruin must have been thrilled.
Oh, absolutely, he was. That's 19 in a row now as well for Old Brighton at home. That stretches back, well, it's 2 unbeaten seasons for them now, and a win to start 2026, and they've got another home game coming up this week, which you mentioned, against St Kevin's, and you would think that they're going to have to be favourites for that one as well.
They defended well, particularly inside their defensive 50 when Bernards were able to get clean ball out of stoppage. 3 of their best players, incidentally, for Brighton were in their back 6, so Marcel Bruin really appreciated the job that his defensive team did. And then they were pleased to kick a score. They said that when they got a quick ball in, they look good, but they've got a bit of work to do on the slow plays. Bernards did a good job at defending slow plays, so that's an area that Marcel and Brighton will continue to work on. From Steve Alessio's perspective, he thought their first half was competitive without getting a reward on the scoreboard. They started well in the second half, but again, just couldn't capitalise on the scoreboard, and then Brighton just got their surge game going. The running, the turnovers, the converting on the scoreboard. So some good signs with some experienced players returning to the Snow Dogs, and they debuted some of their young talent. They'll just have to knuckle down and look for an improved performance next week. The final game of the weekend, University Blues hosting Premier B champions from last year, Old Trinity at Melbourne Uni. The Blues, the first 6 goals of the match, they led by 33 points at quarter time. Twin Towers, James Stewart and Sam Grimley both kicked 2 apiece. Boston Dowling, who we're a massive fan of, a huge young talent. Brayden, we've talked about him on numerous occasions, the young tall. He kicked 3 in the second quarter. But then at the other end of the ground, Stewart and Grimley continued to kick goals in the other direction. Trinity led the contested ball count at the half. They only trailed the inside 50 count by 3, but just that efficiency of the Blues forwards, as we know, the likes of Stewart and Grimley, they got a run of scores and they managed to get away to 44 points with a quarter to play. And then James Stewart, as he can so often do, put the game away with 3 goals in the first 10 minutes of the last term. He finished with 6. Sam Grimley finished with 6. And the Blues, 50-point win in the end. And that pairing, Matty, has the Stewart-Grimley pairing, that's threatened to take the game by storm for many, many years. They haven't quite been fit at the same time or put it all together at the same time. But I tell you what, 12 goals between them in their first game, that's something to look out for every other coach in the competition.
Yeah, I mean, if that's just them getting started, what sort of havoc could they wreak come the end of the season? About the most devastating 1-2 forward punch in the competition when they're both up and running, and to kick 12 goals between them, it's just evidence of that. 10 straight in the first half. We love good, accurate goal kicking, and when we were doing the around the grounds, we kept eyes on that. We wanted to see how many more they could kick before getting their first behind. So and that proved the difference. I mean, if you look at halftime, 10 scores to 9 in favour of Uni Blues. So in terms of the scoreboard, very even, but sometimes all the conversion makes all the difference in the end.
Yeah, it was 31 points of difference, same amount of scores. What did the two coaches have to say, Brayden?
Yeah, Matty Smith, he reckons the scoreboard flattered us. Having a chat to him personally, he said that the two big forwards, we touched on them, but they benefited from ball movement further up the ground. So Brad Ebert, DeBood, him and Geordie LaCava played off half back and they just drove everything, knowing when to get forward, knowing when to hold. And then your Mitch Lloyds and your Conways just locked down and allowed those guys to roam. Marty Gleason's actually been thrown on ball this year as a bit of an in and under. So he got the balls in. You touched on Max Irvin here, Jace. He's a guy to watch out for. He's come across from the Hampden League. He's gone into this midfield mix. They've mixed it up a little bit. But, yeah, they're just really happy with it. Some personnel changes, system changes, how they want to move the footy. He goes, it's great that the big boys kick 6, but there was multiple goal kickers and they were unpredictable, which is one of the hardest things to defend. Donald McDonald wasn't too pleased with Old Trinity's performance as well. He said there was positives with the debutants, 3 or 4 guys back after a long-term layoff, but he just said their skills weren't as sharp when they had possession, which is it's going to happen. There's an adjustment period when you come up. Last year they dominated. They're one of the 2 form sides throughout the home and away season in Premier B. So you go up through the grades, the pressure probably lifts. Yeah, those 15, 20-metre kicks where they probably might have missed them on Saturday, they just invite that pressure and then it makes it hard to defend from the front.
That's Premier Men's in the book. Next up on For the Love of the Game, we'll talk Premier B Men's. That's next.
Keep up to date with everything that's happening around the VAFA by subscribing to our socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook and LinkedIn. Has someone just taken a screamer or kicked goal of the year? Send us your best and we might share them around the league. Join in the fun with all the best pics, videos, stories and reels from around the competition. They're all on VAFA socials. Search VAFA and VAFA Women's on your favourite platforms.
This is For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk Premier B Men's. We know what a fantastic competition it was last year and it was fascinating. We were all waiting by to see what would happen in the opening round with the teams coming down, Collegians and De La Salle. A couple of really good teams coming up as well. How's that all going to shake out in 2026? Matthew Donald's our Premier B guru for 2026. Where do you want to start?
Well, I want to start at Chelmsford Park because this may well be the story of the year in round 1. The minor premiers of Premier B last year, Old Ivanhoe, coming up against Ajax, who finished 4th in Prem C at the end of the home and away, went on the dream run through to the grand final. I think most were expecting that the Hoers were going to start things off at home with a pretty comfortable win. Anything but that. Ajax kept them goalless to quarter time, 3-1, and they just built from there. Jackers won every quarter. This was a proper turn-up for the books, and a final score in the end, 18-11, 119 to 9-8-62. A phenomenal performance by the Jackers. Granted, the Hoers had a few players out, which is worth noting, and Lockie Buzzard did make mention of that, and we'll get to some of the coaches' comments very shortly. So there's that to take into account. But the Jackers themselves, they had a host of new players. They had several debutants and a few more who were just in their first year, sort of out of high school also. So it was a very inexperienced Ajax lineup that was there as well. So that final score is 18-11, 119 to 9-8-62. Some of the key performers, Jordan Cohen led the way for the Jackers with 4 goals. Max Hertzell and Justin Vogel each kicked 3 goals. Sasha Levine and Jethro Gunn, they were the 2 leading disposal getters for Ajax, 27 and 26 disposals respectively for them. For Old Ivanhoe, Trent McManus and Will Hanlon, they each kicked 2 goals. They were the only multiple goal scorers. Isaac Dugdale led all comers though in terms of disposals. He won 33 touches in the end. As far as the coaches were concerned, Lockie Buzzard said from their point of view, it was a really pleasing effort. 5 first gamers and 6 teenagers as well. So a very inexperienced Ajax lineup. It noted that they won the midfield battle, and that was really important for them. If you can get clearances and contests right, it proves that it's going to be very important for Ajax, and so that was the case at the weekend. It gives you a good chance to win the game. It was also really pleased with the defensive efforts. Mentioned Jordan Cohen led the way with 4 goals, but they had 10 goal scorers all up. So not only were the forwards kicking goals, but the midfielders were getting in on the act as well. For Xavier Naish, the Old Ivanhoe coach, he just gave full credit to Ajax, who were just too good on the day. They were a strong side who was strong around the contest and well-structured behind it as well. They played a game plan that was tough to break down, and in the end, that just proved to be the case that they just weren't able to get through Old Ivanhoe. Xavier Naish wanted to pay credit to Trent McManus as well, who was terrific, and Jasper Hopkins, who battled really hard in the ruck all day with the 2 standout players from Xavier Naish's point of view for Old Ivanhoe.
Let's whip through the other games quickly. The one that really stands out, Gordon Barnard, Old Geelong in a tight game. It was scores level at 3/4 time, but Old Geelong in the end, the Ogs got it done, 11-14-80 on the road against Old Camberwell, 8-15-63 by 17 points.
Oh, this was a really tough game. The margin didn't exceed 11 points at any stage throughout the first 3 quarters. and it took a 75-second patch in time on in the last term where the Old Geelong kicked 2 goals, and that was ultimately what broke the game open. So for it to go that long and have the margin be as close as it was gives you a bit of an idea on how close these two teams are matched.
It's a big win for Old Geelong, isn't it?
Huge result for
Nick
them.
Dixon must have been wrapped.
He was. He did note that both sides looked a bit scratchy. You could tell that it was definitely a round one contest, and he thinks that there's a lot of improvement left in both sides, but was really happy just to get the result. Noted that it was probably won in moments. As I said, there's that 75-second patch in time on the fourth that pretty much got it done. He paid credit to Old Campbell, though, who did really well to take away some of Old Geelong's strengths, but he was happy with the way that the midfield and the forward stood up in key moments. Tom Gorrell and Connor Dixon were the leading goal scorers for Geelong. They each kicked 3 goals over the course of the day. For Neil Connell, though, of Old Camberwell, he said it's always a challenge in round one because sometimes you get a new team that you haven't come up against before, who recruit a whole bunch of players, and you're just trying to get a feel for how it all looks, and that was the case for them. They started really well. They weren't able to kick a goal. They were 0-5 in the opening term, were Old Camberwell. They had opportunities throughout the course of the match, but they just weren't able to take their chances. But paid credit for Old Geelong, whose defence really held up over the 4 quarters.
The two teams that came down from Premier Men's last season, Collegians and D-La, met at Harry Trott. In the end, it was the Lions 16-9-105, defeating D-La Cell 12-6-78. What do the coaches make of it?
So Jordan McKenzie said it was a really hard-fought and pleasing win against a hard-working D-La outfit. The margin was really close up until 3-quarter time. It was only 5 points,
5 points
at the final break, and then 5-2 broke the game open for the Lions at the end. Geordie said that they started the first 3 quarters really well, but they let themselves down in time on in each of those quarters, especially with defensive 50 stoppages, which will be a real focal point for Collegians going forward. But was very pleased to see the team produce the final quarter of footy when it was required, the scores being so close at the final stanza. For Nick Hyland, he noted what a high standard of footy it was. Both teams had momentum at times, but paid full credit to Geordie and Collegians. They were just a bit more consistent for longer. But it felt like a real game of momentum. He was pleased with how they were able to fight back after a slow start. But yeah, ultimately it was just Collegians who just had the momentum for longer.
Willie CYMS 14-24-108 defeated Old Carey 6-22-58 at Fearon. Was it blowing a gale there or something? Because that was 38 shots to 28. 14-24 to 6-22, but a great win for CYs over a finalist of last year. 50-point win to start the season.
Combined a score of 20 goals, 46 over the course of the match, 66 scores. So it was an absolute score fest rather than a goal fest. I did eventually get around to asking Conterzoglu, the Williams CYMS coach, about that. He did say that there was a breeze, but not a gale force wind. So
it was more round one rust.
Yeah, more to that or ultimately. He was very happy with the fact that with a few areas of the game. He was happy with the fact they were able to generate so many scores. That was led by Harry Miller, who could have put himself right in the frame for ton watch early if he was a bit more accurate. 4 goals, 7.
Wow, 11 shots for the day. That's a good start.
Yeah, so not bad. If he can just brush up on the accuracy, he's one to keep an eye out for in the race for 3 figures. Definitely a scoring end, though, that he did know, but it was a bit tricky and a little challenging for both sides. And Luke Giles pretty much conceded the same sort of thing, that both sides had their opportunities, but they too were pretty wasteful in front of goal. Both teams were, as I said, Old Carey kicked 6-22 in the end. So both sides had their chances. Bit to work on. I suspect a goal kicking practice will be on the menu at training for the two clubs, but for Williamstown CYMS, this is a great win to start the season at home.
Speaking of great wins, last year's Premier C champions have come up to Premier B this year. Beau Morris, and right here at Elstonwick Park behind us, 13-17-95, Beau Morris knocked off Old Melburnians 10-9-69 in the end by 26 points.
Yeah, what a great result this is for Prem B. The two promoted sides both managing to get a win in the opening weekend of the season just goes to show that this is going to be a pretty competitive league.
No easy games once again, Brayden.
No, it's fantastic. It really is. And it just shows that no easy game, as you said, but also the quality that's in Prem C is good enough to step up and have an impact in the second tier.
What do the coaches make of this result?
So Josh Burke was very pleased with the result, naturally. They're long pre-seasons. He said no matter how much work you put into it, you always sort of go into round one with a bit of trepidation. Have we done enough? Have we got it all right? How's it all all going to play out. But he was concerned with losing some experience, which he noted when I spoke to him ahead of the start of the season. But was really pleased with how they stood up in the contest, particularly in the midfield. He thought the contest stuff was really good, and that's been a focus for them. So he was very happy to get that underway, or very happy to get started off on the right foot there. With James Byrne, he was disappointed with the start. Very slow start. They conceded 7 goals in the opening quarter to Beau Morris. They were pleased with the way that they sort of closed their way back into the game. They fought pretty hard at times. They're implementing a new game plan, so it is going to fluctuate at times. They do attack really well, and that's sort of been their hallmark, Old Melburnians, for a while. It's now trying to bring the contest and the defensive side of it into it, but they got outnumbered at times throughout the contest, and that was the most disappointing thing from it for James Byrne's perspective.
5 goals to Jai Florent, the brother of Carlton's Ollie Florent. He's vice-captain at Bowie this year, so a great start to the season for him and a great start to the season for Bowie. 26-point winners over Old Melburnians. That wraps up Premier B. Coming up next on For the Love of the Game, we'll talk Premier C.
Are you thinking about pulling on the boots and having a kick in 2026? If so, we'd love to have you in the VAFA. Australia's largest senior footy competitions has teams suited to all ages and experience levels, from under 19s to seniors. Log on to vafa.com.au and check out our club directory to find a club near you.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. Time to talk Prem C men's, and Brayden May kicked off with a bang over the weekend. We'll start with Fitzroy, and speaking of kicking off with a bang, they had a monster first quarter. Set up a massive win over Marcelin, 71 points.
Yes, 17 scoring shots in the first quarter. Talk about arriving back in the third tier with an exclamation point for one of the premiership favourites. So in the end, they kicked 19-20, 134 to Marcelin's 10-3-63. We're seeing a bit of a trend, some big scores early in the season, which is fantastic. Jack Dalton, in his first game as coach, would be absolutely thrilled with this. They've had a lot of player turnover, new guys come in. Daniel Shepherd, one of the big V under-19 representatives, kicked 5 last season, so really good to see him get on the scoreboard. Maybe someone we see pop up for the Rising Star committee later in this season. It's really exciting for the Roys. They're going to be right in the mix.
Pegs 11-17-83 defeated Glen Ira Old McKinnon 5-6-36 by 47 points.
Yeah, Rob Kerr's side, again, lost some key players in the off-season. A bit of a different look forward line as well. So multiple goal kickers. Matthew Barake, one guy that kicked 3. He kicked some goals last year. Ended up about mid-20. So he's come in, kicked a few to kickstart the season. The Griffins, I'll be disappointed to lose their first game. Seamus O'Brien, an Irishman, was one of their best. But the Griffins, I think they're going to take a few weeks to get going under a new coach as well.
Old Peninsula and Hampton Rovers. So Old Peninsula coming up a division, Hampton Rovers coming down a division, and in the end it was Rovers. Their first win in 580 days. They led at every break to win by 27 points. 17-12, 114, defeating Old Peninsula 13-9, 87.
And you couldn't have got two different contrasting sides. Old Peninsula, we touched on them in the preview. They were a big-bodied side, more experienced. The Hampton Rovers, super young, and the Rovers running their legs got them across the line. Jack McPherson's a guy that popped up. He kicked a few. I think it might have even been a career high, which is awesome for him with 6. Rowan Heasley, one of the Peninsula's recruits, popped up well. Paul Carrigan, the coach, debut win. Great for him. He was really pleased. So many under-21 players in their side as well. So, again, early on in the season, they're probably going to be full of run. When we get to the midway point of the season, we're going to see how their bodies do handle that as well. They'll take on Ormond in a bit of a local rival next game.
Closest game of the round in Prem C was decided by just one kick. Mazenod knocked off St Bede's Mentone Tigers at Mentone.
And I think some people might consider this a bit of an upset for Andrew Pickering, premiership coach back at the Nodders. Debut win, it's fantastic. Hayden Boyce, someone we've probably touched on this show before, gun forward at Mazenod. Kicked 5, including the sealer. They kicked 2 in a row late. They had 2 of the 3 last scores. So, again, the Nodders, they've been quiet, but very quietly spruiking how happy they are getting a lot of people back into the club, familiar environment. But Tigers coach John McKee, one of the co-coaches alongside Tom Tyke, when he just said we didn't get it right in the last quarter. And the key quote is, we didn't get it right in the moments. And that's all it comes down to, these sort of games. The little things, but great things for the Tigers. They're young as well. They're going to lose like this is probably better than losing by 100 points from my point of view, because you'll learn more from these close games. You can think, what can we do in this moment? It's a 2-minute drill like we see at AFL level sometimes.
The big winners of the weekend were Parkdale, 26-18, 174, defeating Ormond 6-7-43. The Vultures by 131 points off the back of Mitch Brown kicking 9 goals and Jai Alcock kicking 4.
Yeah, I think they're the premiership favourites. I think we can outright say they've fallen short the last couple of years of where this club wants to be. It was a tough welcome for Ormond, a super young side. They lost Flynn O'Toole, the gun ruckman, early in the first quarter, which absolutely kills you. I think your ruckman's arguably your most important player at local footy, because if you've got a good one, you're halfway home to a premiership along with a decent spine. But again, Auburn will go away and learn from this. Parkdale are a superb football side. The guys they've brought in, they're seasoned senior footballers. They've got the big bodies. They know how to prepare themselves. And Auburn have still got some kids that are learning what it takes. There's a big difference from going under 18 footy into senior footy. And Kyle Pinto's a really positive coach, which I love. And he'll take away. He said the pressure was poor, but the great thing is you can teach that. You can go away and you can reinforce the positives and show film of the good moments.
And Matty, it's only round 2 next week, but it sets up already a great, very interesting game between Parkdale and Fitzroy at Brunswick Street.
Oh, yeah, no, that's going to be a terrific game. And I hope we get a really good turnout from it from an attendance point of view. But, I mean, they're two of the teams that you'd expect they're going to be right up there come the end of the season. So an early look at the two top contenders. Can't wait for it.
Lots to look forward to in Premier C. We will take a quick break. We'll talk divisional footy next on For the Love of the Game.
The VAFA Rising Star Award recognises the competition's most talented young players. Each week, the VAFA Rising Star Committee receives nominations for one male and one female player aged 20 years or under who played no more than 7 senior games before this season. Our overall season winners will be declared the VAFA Rising Stars for 2026. So if your club has a young gun making their mark, nominate them now at media@vafa.com.au.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk men's divisional football now. We're going to start with Division 1. It got underway on Saturday. St Mary's Salesian 2017-137 defeated Monash Blues 14-10-94 by 43 points. Oakley in a thriller over Q. It was 12-6-78 Oakley, defeating Q 9-19-73. Geez, the Bears would be bleeding about that.
Oh, yeah, no. It's whenever you get enough opportunities to win a game, but you just can't put it through the big sticks, it always hurts.
28 shots to 18 Q had, and they lost by 5 points.
You don't see much better goal kicking anymore. It's an underrated skill, the old goal kicking.
12-6 to Oakley, 9-19 to Q. So Oakley, the Crushers, by 5 points. UHSVU 14-14-98 defeated Old Yarra Cobras 10-6-66 by 32 points. A first up win for Parkside, 13-10-88 defeated Brunswick 6-7-43 by 45 points. And it was a tight one, the final game of the weekend as well. Preston Bull Ants 9-8-62, hanging on against Paran 8-8-56 by a goal. Paran's losing streak just stretches for an extra week. They're getting close.
They are. No, they're every week, and it's only the start of the season, but carrying on from last year. But they are getting closer, and hopefully they can break it sooner rather than later.
Winless last year, just almost got there this week, and maybe it's coming for them in round 2. Speaking of 2, talk us through Division 2.
Yes, well, let's have a look at the games that happened in Division 2. And you mentioned inaccurate goal kicking, and it's fair to say that was the case with Canterbury. 12-20-92 in the end. Luckily, it only cost them percentage, though. They got away to a 38-point win over West Brunswick, 7-12-54. In terms of the other matches, Whitefriars were too good for Aquinas, 14-10-94 to 8-10-58, so a 36-point victory there for Whitefriars. Elsonwick were the biggest winners of the round, 19-13-127, too good for North Brunswick, 9-10-64. MHSOB, 8-10-58, they fell to Powerhouse with a big win, 14-13-97, so 39-point win there for Powerhouse to start the year. And then the final match, the South Melbourne Senior Men's, they won by 17 points over Therry Penola, 10-11-71 to 8-6-54.
Some interesting results there, Brayden, because obviously we look at the teams that have gone up or down from the previous year. Powerhouse won a flag, so they went up a division and ended up having a 39-point win. What a great start to their life in Div 2.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Nick Cox is a fabulous coach. I think he's probably one of the better coaches in the VAFA. I think even though he might be coaching lower down the grades, he's just got this team clicking on all cylinders. And one cheeky thing I loved on the team sheet, there was no numbers on the Powerhouse team sheet. So good luck working out who their better players are. We
don't endorse that sort of behaviour, incidentally, but we do endorse Nick Cox's hair. Best hair in the VAFA, and they had a first up win. Elstonwick dropped down after a tough year last year, but they've started in a great note as well. 63-point win for them.
Yeah, really good win. Had a quick text message exchange with Ollie, the coach, and he just spoke, one of them new players down from Old Peninsula. He's playing some good footy. I'm going to keep the name away. You go read about it even more. It's they were really impressed. Plays in the midfield, but some other guys that previously played in their premierships would come back as well. The team graphic that they actually named on their socials, a lot of those guys kicked multiple goals, so their forward line's firing early in the season.
Division 3, just the 2 games in Division 3 each week this year with a bye. Wattle Park, the Animals had a bye first up. Talk us through the 2 results from the weekend.
Yeah, so Richmond Central under Michael Motto got off to a really strong win against Albert Park, 11-16-82 to 4-4-28. Really key. New guys have come in and had an impact. A lot of these guys have come in off the street as well. And then Hawthorn's new era under Declan Foote, an ex-VFL player. They picked up a win 13-18, 96 to 7-9, 51 against Latrobe. So clear win there. I reckon those two with Wattle Park might be the top three we're looking at in Div 3 at the moment as well.
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out this week. Wattle Park, as I said, the Animals had to wait the extra week. They get to run out in round 2. That is it for men's footy. The divisionals are done. Next on For the Love of the Game, we're going to talk VAFA Women's. We'll start with Premier. That's next on For the Love of the Game.
VAFA Media has risen to another level in 2026 with more live stream and radio coverage coming your way every Saturday. Enjoy our award-winning VAFA SEN Match of the Day radio call on vafa.com.au and the SEN app from 1:45. Plus a host of Premier Men's matches and our Under-19 Premier Match of the Round streaming every week on Community TV, along with more live and free matches from Premier Men's and Premier Women's streaming on vafa.com.au than ever before. And don't forget that every game from Premier Men's, Premier B, Premier C and Premier Women's can be enjoyed on demand in full every week at vafa.com.au. Saturdays are for the VAFA. Catch the action live on the VAFA website, Community TV and the SEN app.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. Time to talk VAFA Women's competition. We'll start with Premier Women's, and all eyes this week were on the grand final rematch between Old Scotch and Caulfield Grammarians. These two teams played a series of thrillers last season. Wasn't quite so close this time. Old Scotch, the reigning champs, got it done again. 9-10-64, defeating Caulfield 6-2-38. So a 26-point win for Old Scotch at home, celebrating in style. Elsewhere, Old Brighton and St Kevin's. Old Brighton stepping up into Premier Women's this season, but with St Kevin's getting it done in Jamie Pye's first game as coach. 7-6-48, defeated Old Brighton 4-6-30. Elsewhere, a big win for Fitzroy, 100 points. 15-19, 109, defeated Williamstown CYMS 139 at Loft Reserve. A thriller at McAllister Oval in Brunswick. West Brunswick, the Magpies 2-5-17, defeating Westbourne Grammar 1-5-11. Westbourne within a goal in their first Premier Women's game. That's a pretty good effort, really, in the scheme of things, I would have thought.
Especially against the side that were flirted with the top four last year. So it's a great result. And again, on a different day, both sides probably take a lot away from it. Not a massive attacking game, but defence is a great starting point for both sides.
And the final game of the weekend, Q7, 3-7-25, defeated Old Geelong 2-2-14. Time to talk Premier B women's football now. And, well, one of the great stories of Premier B over the weekend for round 1 was Parkside. They've jumped up from Division 2 in 2025. They've made the big step up to Premier B in 2026. Joining us is their coach, Anthony Romano. Anthony, thanks for your time.
No worries. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
You guys had Old Zabs first up. Talk us through the game. You obviously got away to a flying start. 4 straight goals in the opening term. You led by 23 points at the first change.
Yeah. We it was quite sure. We played some really moved the ball well, got it in our forward line, and we brought our tackling pressure. So we just had them under the pump a bit. So yeah, no, it was really pleasing.
What were you expecting as a group, Anthony? Like, it's a big jump from Division 2 up to Premier B Women's, and I read the season preview last week, and you were saying, look, we're not exactly sure what to expect. How did you approach that with the players?
Look, our first instinct when we went up was a bit of shock that we're going into Premier B, and then it was more what an honour to be regarded as a Premier B side, and then we just set ourselves that we're not in there to make numbers up. We want to work hard and try and make finals again.
You led by 15 points at halftime, 16 at three-quarter time. Then they came at you in the last quarter, and it ended up being a really tight one. They kicked 3-1 in the last term. You guys managed to hang on.
Yeah, that was probably the pleasing thing, that we were able to hang on and show resilience and not panic. And I probably had some of the better players on the bench and trying to get them on, and then they said, don't worry about it, we'll just trust the players out there. So it was really good.
Anthony, congratulations on the win. I'm curious what goes through a coach's head in the last term when you've got an opposition side charging at you. You've been on top all day and you've built a really handy lead over 3 quarters. Then in that last term, the opposition coming at you with a rush. From a coach's perspective, what's going through your mind at that point of a game? What are you really trying to focus on at that stage of a match?
Just trying to keep the girls positive and just keep working on our structure. And there's not much coach can do out there. It's up to the girls, and I left it in their hands, and we had a few injuries and a few rotations got thrown around a bit, but they were able to work it out on the field. Our leaders were great, and everybody led from the front, basically.
You spoke about your leaders, Anthony. Can you give us a little bit of an insight to who they are and what they bring to your side?
So our captain's Hannah Baird. She's been part of the inaugural team. She's just a gutsy, hard-nosed player, and really committed to the side. Our two vice captains are Annabelle Crisp and Emily Raymond, who's come back to us this year. They support Hannah well. And then rounding up our deputy vices are Georgia and April Hamilton. So, they just were able to control the situation well. So,
Belief's such a powerful thing in footy. Anthony, you guys hung on to win by 2 points. What's it meant to the group? What was the vibe in the group afterwards, and what's it done for your confidence and your belief?
That we belong there and we can compete. So we'll see what this week brings. Like every week's a different challenge. We don't know what to expect from all the other sides, but we'll just bring the same sort of intensity. We've got a lot of work to still do. We've still got a few players that have to come back, and some that have just had a late pre-season, so probably playing in our other side that will manage to get up. So, the depth's really good.
What's it meant to your footy club to have a women's team playing premier footy in the VAFA?
It feels good. Feels good, especially we're only 6 years in, and probably the first time we've had two sides. And last year was a big step. I mean, unfortunately, weren't able to get the chocolates, but we had 11 wins in a row to get there. And the girls have got some real belief, and we're just always developing, I suppose.
Old Yarra comes up this weekend in round 2. As you said, Anthony, every week brings a new challenge. All the best for this week and for the road ahead, and thanks so much for your time. Well done.
No worries. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Great to talk with Anthony Romano. Wonderful result for Parkside first up. Let's look around the grounds at the other games. We'll start with Doncaster Reserve. Old Yarra Cobra is 8-9-57, defeating Latrobe University 1-6-12. Latrobe making that double jump as well, same as Parkside. So 45-point win for Old Yarra. And speaking of Old Yarra, our VAFA Rising Star nominee for round 1 was from Old Yarra. It's Eden Ackland, who kicked 4 goals on debut for Old Yarra Cobra. She's come through the Northern Knights system. She played 1 senior game in 2025 in the VAFA for North Brunswick. She actually played 2 games on the weekend. This was her Saturday game. She kicked 4, was going so well, she lined up again on the Sunday for North Brunswick Dragons. So congratulations to Eden Ackland. She's our female nominee for VAFA Rising Star in round 1. And our men's nominee, well, we'll get to him when we talk about Tunwatch. We'll get to him when we talk about Tunwatch. That's called a tease.
Oh, very nice, Jason.
Very good from you, Jason. Going around the grounds, the rest of Premier B, Thriller at JL Murphy Reserve. Bo Morris, a 3-point win over Port Melbourne, charges 4-7-31 to 3-10-28. So a bit of inaccuracy plaguing both sides, but the Sharks getting a vital win to start the season there, Brayden.
And then in the final game of our 8-team competition here, Old Melburnians with a 6-5-41 to 1-1-7 win over Glen Ira Old McKinnon at Elstonwick Park, just behind us.
Let's talk divisional football now. Division 1 women's football. Let's run through those scores. Powerhouse, big winners. 94-point winners over St Mary's Salesian. 14-13-97 defeated St Mary's Salesian 3 behind. So a 94-point win to start the season for Powerhouse. Oakley 3-7-25 defeated Whitefriars 1-8 by 17 points. The thriller of the round was at Marcelin. Marcelin 3-3-21, sneaking home over Ormond 3-2-20 by a single point. And Monash Blues are on the board for 2026 at Freeson Oval. 2-6-18 defeated Old Kerry 1-3-9. The Blues home by 9 points. Let's talk Division 2.
Division 2, the big winners were MCCFC, who got a win over Caulfield Grammarians, a big win in the end. 65-point win, 9-19-73. So it could have been an even bigger win, 1-8 the Grammarians. Richmond Central got a win over Old Campbell, 5-10-40 to 2-12. UHSVU were too good for the Old Yarra Cobras, 8-12-60 to 139. And then the real thriller was at Castlefield Reserve, a 1-goal margin in the end. Hampton Rovers against Beau Morris. Hampton Rovers winning 5-5-35 to Beau Morris 4-5-29, Brayden.
And then over in Division 3, Hawthorn started its season with a 5-10 to 1-4-10 win over Mazenod, which is a fantastic result here. And then I found my best goal kicking result of the weekend. Fitzroy Senior Women's third team, 16-4-100.
Well done.
To 3-1-19 against Brunswick. So a great win there for the Roys. The other game of the round, De La Salle, 8-11-59, defeated Old Haileybury 3-20, and Albert Park won via forfeit.
Let's talk Division 4 women's football. Old Zabs 2-8-20 defeated Aquinas 1-3-9. Wattle Park had a win first up, 4-5-29 defeated North Brunswick, who didn't score, so a 29-point win for Wattle Park at Bennett's Wood Reserve. Ormond, well, we talk about the great kicking of the weekend. The poor Ormond coach, 5-24-54. Fortunately, Glenara Old McKinnon, their seconds team, just kicked the 1 goal. So in the end, Ormond still won it by 8 goals, but 5-24-54 to 1 straight goal. And then the Sunday game at Melbourne Uni Oval, Canterbury 9-15-69 defeated the Muggers 4-3-27 by 42 points. So Division 5.
Parkdale Vultures, what a weekend for their senior men's and women's team. The women's side, 13-13-91 defeated Elstonwick, who were held scoreless, unfortunately, for them. So a great win for the Vultures there. St. Kevin's women's third side, they came away with a 5-10-40 to 1-1-7 win against West Brunswick's third side. A great start for the combined side, Prairie Collegians, with an 11-12-78 to 1-goal straight win over South Melbourne.
That team called the Two Blue Lions. It's actually a fantastic name, the Two Blues Paran and the Collegians being the Lions, so they're going to be known as the Two Blue Lions.
I like it.
That's one of the great nicknames. Preston Bullants, again, like the men's team, the women got the job done with a 7-11-53 to 2-1-13 win over Parkside. And then rounding out our results in the women's competition this weekend, Monash Blues, second side, 4-5-29, defeated D-La 2-3-15.
Still to come on For the Love of the Game, Ton Watch and Tips. And next we'll talk Under-19 Premier, Holmesglen Under-19 Premier with our reporter LACHIE MOIR. That's next on For the Love of the Game.
Keep up to date with everything that's happening around the VAFA by subscribing to our socials. We're on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook and LinkedIn. Has someone just taken a screamer or kicked goal of the year? Send us your best and we might share them around the league. Join in the fun with all the best pics, videos, stories and reels from around the competition. They're all on VAFA socials. Search VAFA and VAFA Women's on your favourite platforms.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. It's time to talk Holmesglen Under-19 Premier. The match of the round debuted on Saturday night under lights at Brighton Beach Oval. It was wonderful on Community TV, live and exclusive. Old Brighton and St Kevin's, the grand final rematch. Turned out to be a very entertaining game. Joining us is our Holmesglen Under-19 Premier reporter, as always, LACHIE MOIR. LACHIE, g'day.
G'day, guys. Yeah, cracking round one action. Match of the round delivered, and the other games were riveting as well. Riveting stuff to open up the season, so can't wait to chat about it.
Let's start at Old Brighton. Old Brighton 10-5-65 defeated St Kevin's 7-12-54, so they managed to get Scob again as they did in the grand final last year. It was a tight game, it was passionate. There's obviously plenty of feeling between these two great rivals. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was a very high quality game of football, two very good sides. Kevin's probably just couldn't get the ball in between the two big sticks. I know that sounds a bit simple, but it just cost them. They had more scoring shots, and they could have really asserted some authority, but ball, through the goals at the end of the day. And there was a crucial 10-minute patch there in the second quarter. I'll kick 4 goals, 1, and they really broke the game open. So St Kevin's were good late. They lifted with their pressure, couldn't finish it off and couldn't catch Old Brighton once they got out to that lead. So look, Old Brighton were probably a bit lucky on the day, but impressive. And I think the main takeaway is that Old Brighton are just a bit more polished at the moment and we're a bit more clinical. And St Kevin aren't going to be wasting these chances against the better sides because it will hurt them come the end of the season. But yeah, just a very high quality game and delivered very well.
Parkdale 13-13-91 defeated Beau Morris 7-15-57. We talk about goal kicking as well. Just 4 shots the difference between them, but in the end, Parkdale winning that by 34 points.
Yeah, well, just another game that was a big talking point. Beau Morris, huge issue there. 7 goals, 15 in front of goal. So that killed them. It was tight early. Beau a bit wasteful early on in the game. But, I was impressed with Parkdale's pressure, tackling hard, and it really set the tone. And they went on because of it. Love the young players that they have there. they really delivered as well. And they created chances, Bo Morris, and like I said, 15, but just couldn't convert in front of goal. So they'll be better if they can get the goal kicking sorted out. But too good, Parkdale.
And then going from there to Melbourne University Oval, and sometimes we go an entire season without one of these. We've not even had to wait for the end of the first weekend, Lockie, for a draw. Yeah,
game of the round, I reckon, this one. Absolute insane finish. Caulfield led most of the day. They're up by 20 points early. You fought back, hit the front late on in the game, but Caulfield, 2 goals in the final minute to steal a draw. Ethan Lackman, the match winner, 2 goals from both. Both sides obviously showed really strong patches of football. A little bit inconsistent, but not too much of a worry. Caulfield dangerous, Uni Blues look dangerous in some areas. So I think these two teams will be very evenly matched, but like to see them play some other sides in the competition to see how they match up. But yeah, absolute cracker to kick off the season.
Blues got a bit of experience in that. Was it the preliminary final last year here at Elstonwick Park? They played the extra time game, the Blues. They came from behind and managed to tie it up against Skull, eventually lost that game.
They're used to this situation now all of a sudden.
Sorry, go ahead, Brayden.
Sorry, Lockie, I was just trying to jump ahead to the next game. St. Bede's Mentone, they really kicked off well. Some great goal kicking, and Jai Pugsley hit the scoreboard well.
Yeah, 100%. He kicked 5 goals, so that's a great day out for Jai. Real arm wrestle early. They started well at Scotch, but sort of after half time and a little bit before it, St. Bede's were just polished and a bit more better in front of goal. The last quarter, they asserted some dominance there, kicked away strongly. We spoke about Jai Pugsley, 5 goals. Rhett Fernando, pressure off half-back, was elite. Last quarter just came home with a wet sail, St. Bede's. So really, really good performance. And I think maybe just a bit of a depth problem there. Talking to Coach Hugo Bourne from Scotch, probably just killed them late. Lost a bit of their legs, ran out of petrol tickets. So they were able to capitalise on that. And yeah, they've kicked off the season with a great win.
And the final game of the weekend at Waverley Oval, De La Salle 11-8-74 defeating Old Zabs 6-4-40 by 34 points.
Yeah, well, you'll open up the form guide and you'll have a look at this one. It'll say 34, so that's about 6 goals. But I think that the scoreline probably flatters De La Salle a little bit. It was a lot closer than what it looked. The contest was very, very even, especially in the second half. But once again, story of the round, just the efficiency going forward for De La Salle. They were just able to take their chances, whereas Xavier butchered a few chances in front of them. I think there was a few junk time goals there from De La Salle that probably blew the margin out. So it was probably about a goal or a 2-goal game, but I think late, and just with how polished they are, De La Salle were able to get out to that 34-point lead. But look, I think Xavier are not far off. Cleaner ball use and a bit more efficiency going forward, and they'll be hard to beat. But yeah, another one, a team really making a statement in round one. So well done, De La Salle. 4 goals to Jody Cripps for De La in that one as well, which brings us to our tips. Round one, Lockie, you got 2 out of 5. Our celebrity tipster, Sench from Sench Footy with his 275,000 Instagram followers. He picked 3. So you're 1 behind. You've got a bit of ground to make up. Let's have a look at round 2. Parkdale versus Caulfield. It kicks off Friday night, Friday 7 p.m. at Jerry Green. Who you got, Parkdale or Caulfield? Yeah, I'm going to take Parkdale. I think they come through sort of the better form line there from round 1, beating Bo Morris. So I'm going to take Parkdale at home.
Sench has got Caulfield. Old Zabs versus Uni Blues, 10 a.m. Saturday at Toorak Park.
Old Zabs to bounce back. I thought they can improve going into this game if they can be a bit better going forward. So I'm going to say they bounce back at home, Old Zabs.
Sench has got Zabs as well. St Kevin's versus Bo Morris, 2 p.m. TH King.
Similar story with Zabs, St Kevin's. I think if they can be a bit more efficient and take their chances, they'll take care of Bo Morris at home. So give me Skevs to bounce back.
Sench has got Skevs as well. Old Scotch versus D-La, 3:30 Camberwell Sports Ground.
Yeah, look, really like the way De La Salle performed in round 1, so I'm going to back him here away from home. The depth concerns me a bit about Old Scotch. If early on in the season they're struggling to run games out, I think De La Salle can turn the tables on them, especially considering De La Salle were elite late last in round 1. So I think De La Salle will be hard to beat in that one.
De La Salle for Sench as well. I believe Sench is off Old Scotch. He's jumped off him real quick, so that might come back to bite him. The final match of the round is our KTV Holmesglen Under 19 Premium Match of the round from 4:45. Once again, we'll have the Brighton double header live on KTV from 4:45. Get a chance to watch Saturday night footy. Settle in. Should be a good one. Old Brighton versus St Bede's Mentone Tigers.
Should be an absolute cracker, this one. Look like they're going to be 2 very even sides, potentially. St Bede's really good round 1. I'm going to just go Old Brighton at home, and I just think they're a little bit more polished. So good win against St Kevin's. I think they can get it done in front of the home ground advantage there.
Super job, Lockie. Enjoy the weekend, mate. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Lachie Moir joining us on For the Love of the Game. Plenty more to come. Stick around.
The VAFA Rising Star Award recognises the competition's most talented young players. Each week, the VAFA Rising Star Committee receives nominations for one male and one female player aged 20 years or under who played no more than 7 senior games before this season. Our overall season winners will be declared the VAFA Rising Stars for 2026. So if your club has a young gun making their mark, nominate them now at media@vafa.com.au.
Welcome back to For the Love of the Game. Well, one of the segments that really took off last season, thanks to Sharon, was Ton Watch. It captivated the imagination of the VAFA up and down, right across all sections, divisions, men's and women's. It was fantastic. In the end, Jake Dillon managed to kick the ton for Richmond Centrals. It was just a great initiative that just brought everybody together and gave every club an equal opportunity to get a little bit of love and a little bit of excitement.
Nothing better than big bags being kicked by the big stay-at-home full forwards, and we got to recount all of them throughout the course of last year. And I still think back to that month when Jake Dillon got into the 80s and got into the 90s. Every week we were keen. How many was he going to kick this weekend? It was a really exciting month as we got closer to the 3 figures, and then a wonderful day when he managed to finally bring up the 3 figures.
So let's have a look at Ton Watch for round 1, and straight out of the gate, playing for Old Carey Under-19s, North Division 1, Will Hart kicked 11. That's a pretty good start first up.
Already 11% of the way
his
there.
Second VAFA Under-19 game. He played school footy last year, so it's his first year full-time in the VAFA, and he is our VAFA Rising Star nominee, and fair enough too. Will Hart from Old Carey, 11 goals first up. That's a fair start.
That is remarkable. That's more than I reckon I kicked in my career.
Well, you were a back pocket, so that's probably fair.
Back pocket, you're polite. The water boy.
Yeah, true. I was left right out. That was my specialty. Mitch Brown, we mentioned earlier, kicked 9 for Parkside Vultures in Prem C. 9 for Mitch Brown to start his campaign. Mate, if he plays every week, as we said, he might kick 150. Zach Bowen from the Old Brighton Reserves kicked 8. 6 goals to Will Young from St Mary's Salesian in the Div 1 Reserves, and then 7 apiece to our man Jake the Snake Dillon. Started with 7. 7 to Daniel Flaherty from Pegs Reserves in Premier C, 7 to Henry Thomas in Canterbury Thirds, and 7 to Jack Watson from Willie CYMS Under-19s as well. We had 15 players boot 6 goals, so that's a reasonable start, including Lauren Boyle, who was our leading VAFA women's goal kicker. Lauren Boyle, who kicked 6 for Powerhouse Seniors in Division 1 women's. According to Play HQ, her first game, maybe ever. We'll have to look into that because she doesn't appear anywhere else on Play HQ. That might just be an anomaly. Or it might be her first game and she's just casually strolled out and kicked 6 for Powerhouse Seniors.
No, it's a fantastic result. One thing I noticed, I love how a lot of the big goal kickers are in the 2s. So some senior coaches, help us out. Leave the bear in the square and make it a bit more fun for us.
That brings us to tips. And gentlemen, head-to-head this season, where were we? We ended up with 10 apiece. Actually, in the opening round, which is pretty good going from both of you. 10 out of 15. Matty, you went 5 of 5 in Premier Women's. No. Always been an expert on the women's side of things, haven't you?
No, absolutely spot on.
4 out of 5 for you, Brayden. There, you both picked 2 out of 5 in Premier B Men's, and William Buck Premier Men's. 3 for Matty, 4 for Brayden. So 10 each leading into round 2. Let's talk Premier Women's, and we'll continue to test your knowledge of the VAFA Women's competition. Matty, we'll start with Caulfield Grammarians versus Westbourne, 10:45 Saturday, Glen Huntly Park.
Yeah, no pressure on me to maintain my
just your perfect record.
Season. Yeah, 100%. We'll see if I can keep it going. Bit of a challenging one, this one. Firstly, both sides coming off defeats, but I'll go with Westbourne here, who were really competitive in their opening game. I'll back them
to knock off the last year's runners-up. Caulfield versus Westbourne.
I think I'll go with the Fields here.
Go with Caulfield. St Kevin's versus Fitzroy, 2 p.m. Rigetti Oval.
And this is another one. Both teams coming off really strong wins. Hard to know where to go with this one. I'm going to back St Kevin's in this one, I think.
Yeah, I think St Kevin's will start their good run of form.
Willie CYMS versus Q, 2 p.m. Saturday at Loft Reserve.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Q Rovers to get the job done here.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think the Bears will be a bit too strong.
Old Geelong versus Old Brighton, 2 p.m. Como Park. Old Geelong coming off a great win. Old Brighton coming off a loss in their first game in Premier Women's.
Yeah, this is a bit of a tricky one, but I think I'll stick with the home side here in Old Geelong.
I'm going to go back Old Brighton. I reckon the margin shows that they're going to be a bit tougher than people think, especially 18-point loss is no disgrace to a powerhouse of this women's competition on the weekend.
Well, Old Brighton have been a powerhouse in Premier B, so they now step up to the top tier. Let's see where they sit. And the final game of the weekend in Premier Women's, 2 p.m. McAllister Reserve, West Brunswick versus Old Scotch.
I like West Brunswick, but I am going to go with Old Scotch. I think this is going to be a pretty close game, this one.
Yeah, Scotch for me as well.
Premier B Men's, D. Larsell versus Old Camberwell.
Dean Lascelles against Old Camberwell here. I'm going to back Old Camberwell to respond after last week.
I'm going to go Nick Highland's men at home.
Willie CYMS versus Collegians, 2 big winners in the opening round.
Yes, this is going to be, well, it's going to be pretty interesting if you're on reserve, see if that breeze really kicks in. But I'm going to back Geordie Mackenzie's men Collegians to get the job done here.
Yeah, I think the Lions will be too strong and hopefully some better goal kicking down at west of Melbourne.
It feels like it's going to be a revealing game. Like some of these early rounds, we're trying to work out who sits where in the pecking order. This is one, I think, that's going to give us a bit of insight, certainly into both of these clubs, but even relative to some others. Beaumaris versus Old Geelong. This one at Trevor Barker Beach Oval.
Oh, this is going to be a really tough one to pick, actually.
Again, 2 first-round winners.
Yeah, Beaumaris at home.
Kind of home. Around the corner from home.
Yeah, second home. Home away from home.
Yeah, I'm with Matty. I reckon this is the toughest game to pick all weekend. I reckon Old Geelong by points.
Oh, he's going margins.
So the winner will... Yeah, that's impressive. Do you get an extra bonus? Maybe you should. So one of those teams will be 2-0 at the end of the day.
If Old Geelong do win by a point, you can have 2 tips.
And, okay, we've got that on record. Yep. Old Melburnians versus Old Ivanhoe. 2 teams both wanting a win because the loser will go to 0-2.
Yeah, no, it's just going to be pretty tricky, rough waters for the loser of this match. But I'm going to back Old Ivanhoe to respond. They're going to get a constellation of stars back. We'll tip them here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the same. I think they're just going to send a gentle reminder that everything's going to go through them this season.
Ajax versus Old Carey in the final game of the round. The Jackers, as we mentioned, big winners. Old Carey, big losers in the first round.
Yeah, I'm going to go Ajax to keep the party moving. What a great start to the season, and got my fingers crossed that they can maintain that momentum again here in round 2.
Yeah, I reckon the Panthers will get the job done here.
Which brings us to William Buck Premier Men's. Old Brighton versus St Kevin's. You'll be down at Brighton Beach Oval, our SEN VAFA match of the day, also streaming live and exclusive on KTV from 1:45 on Saturday. Old Brighton versus St Kevin's. St Kevin's coming off that tough game against Old Zabs. Old Brighton coming off a big win over St Bernard's, but as we mentioned, they haven't lost 9. They've won their last 19 in a row at home. Can St Kevin's snap the streak?
I'm looking forward to calling this game with Cal Cummins, who's already got his Old Brighton scarf sent down to the dry cleaners, so that'll be ready to be picked up by the end of the week. The fortress of Old Brighton is just about impenetrable, so I'm going to tip them to make it 20 in a row, a nice round number here against St Kevin's, which will leave them in a bit of a tricky patch, 0-2 to start the season, a bit of work to do.
Yeah, again, I think this is a real 50-50 game of footy. But I reckon the ton is just. I think they showed up really sharp last week, so I reckon they'll get the job done.
St Bernard's versus Old Scotch down at the Snake Pit. This one you can watch live and free on VAFA TV from 1:55. St Bernard's versus Old Scotch.
It's interesting, St Bernard's really been hard to get a read
respond?
On and particularly the way they went at home last season as well. For the vast majority, they came home with a wet sail in the last 2 games.
I think they only won one of their first 7 at home last season.
Yeah, so at home they really struggled to get out of the blocks. And Old Scotch, no matter what time of the year it is, they're always a really professional outfit. You know what you're going to get from them, and I expect that we're going to get just enough from Old Scotch to get the result here.
Yeah, I think Scotch will probably be a little bit too strong.
You've jumped off the Snow Dogs after you tipped them last week at Brighton.
Just for this week, I want them to win me back.
They loved the fact that you tipped them. They noticed too.
Oh, I hope they prove me wrong.
Old Zabs versus Old Trinity, another game you can watch live and free on VAFA TV on the VAFA website from 1:55 Saturday at Toorak Park. Zabs and the Tees.
Yeah, I had Old Zabs as the team to beat this year, and there's nothing I saw on the weekend that has changed my mind on that. I think they're going to go 2-0, and I think it's going to be a pretty comfortable victory here against Old Trinity.
Yeah, I think Zabs will win this, but it'll be a lot closer than most expect.
Caulfield Grammarians versus Old Haileybury, almost a local derby of sorts.
Yeah, no, this is going to be an interesting match as well. Caulfield so good against the Cardinals last week and only just fell away very late on in the match. But on this occasion, I am going to go with Old Haileybury. It was great chatting with Guy Martyn a little earlier on. It was a resounding final term stanza from Old Haileybury, and I'm going to tip them to get it done here.
Yeah, I reckon the Fields at home this one. They would have got a good taste for it last week, so I just think that taste is going to put them in a position to win their first game of the season.
Yeah, it's interesting form, isn't it? Caulfield were in the game for 3.5 quarters. Old Haileybury were out of the game for 3 quarters, yet they both ended up crossing over and having a win and a loss. So it's going to be interesting to see how that form carries into round 2. And the final game of the weekend is always one to look forward to. It's the University Derby between the Blues and the Blacks.
I can't wait for this game. I love a good University Derby. I think the University Oval is one of the best grounds across the VAFA. Certainly one of my favourites to call from. Shamel not going to be there, but it's going to be a terrific contest all the same. Who to tip?
Blacks were so good for so long, and then the Blues have got their twin towers up forward.
Yeah, I'm going to go University Blacks in this game. As you pointed out, Jace, they were probably on the balance of play deserved to win. They were the better side for longer, led for longer in the match as well, and I think they're going to get their just rewards with a win this week.
I think Blacks will be fired up. They'll be really disappointed to have not got that win last week, and I reckon they'll just have a bit of a point to prove.
Blacks for both of you. Our Holmesglen Under 19 Premier Match of the Round, as we mentioned, will kick in after these games, so you can watch the Brighton game, Brighton St Kevin's in Premier Men's, live and exclusive on KTV. Listen to Matty's call from 1:45 on SEN as well. And then at 4:45, stay on Community TV for our Holmesglen Under 19 Premier Match of the Round, Old Brighton and St Bede's Mentone Tigers from 4:45, straight after the Premier Men's game. Saturday night footy coming away once again on VAFA Media. Well, that wraps up a bumper edition of For the Love of the Game for Round 2. Thanks so much for your company. We'll catch you again next week for the love of the game.